All right, and we're back. The second section should be familiar. It's one of our quizzes towards the beginning of the semester. I'd like you to name the following notes on the piano keyboard. If there are two blanks indicated, please provide both possible names for the note. Okay. If you remember, the piano keyboard is organized in two groups of black keys and white keys. Okay, so for black keys, they're organized in groups of 2 and 3, and then the white keys are just one all along the bottom here. They're all just lined up. So to remember how to name the notes on the keyboard, generally in music we actually start with the letter C, and you can always remember that the letter C is always to the left of the group of 2 black keys. Okay, once you do that, okay, you can basically just, for yourself, just write down all of the letter names and so forth. Again, you can use, it might be useful to start with this section and write out the musical alphabet here, so then when you're counting notes, etc., then you can go backwards and forwards and referencing this without sort of having to do too much, again, the mental gymnastics in your head. Okay, okay. So having sort of written down the white keys, you'll already see some of the answers that will pop up. So for example, pull this down over here a little bit. Okay, so for example, of course, this is a D, okay, and this is an A, right, and also this is an E. This is an E because the pattern repeats, right? So this is again a C because it's to the left of 2 black keys, D, E, F, G, A. By the way, for the test I'm only evaluating what's in the blank, so feel free to add, subtract any notes you might have for the keyboard if it helps you. Okay. Now, for these arrows over here, which has to do with accidentals. Okay, so for example, this arrow is asking you to identify this black key, okay, which sits in between G and A. Remember that in this case, right, this black key is 1/2 step above the G. A half step for us is defined as the shortest distance between 2 notes on the piano keyboard. It is the next adjacent key. Okay, so from G, okay, the next adjacent key up, okay, or to the right. By the way, remember that when we're talking about music and the keyboard, the direction going to the right is going higher. The direction going to the left is lower. Okay, so we're always going higher. Up is from left to right. So from G, the next adjacent key up, okay, is going to be this one right here, okay? And you might say, okay, well, Professor, but G is also adjacent to A. Well, that's fine, but it's actually, it comes into contact with this middle black key sooner, okay? So that's one way of thinking about, so the next adjacent key is really this, and then it goes to A. So the distance between G and this one is 1/2 step, and then from this key to A is another 1/2 step. Okay. In this case, we use accidentals to identify this key. So this one, if it's a 1/2 step above a note, we're going to use the accidental sharp. So this key we can call a G sharp, okay, because it's 1/2 step above G. Right? Or alternatively, you can also think about this key as 1/2 step below A. So in this case, we can also call this A flat. Right? Either answer would be good, but please just give me one of them. Okay. Now the remaining blanks here, they have 2 blanks. Okay, which means that I'd like you to give me both of the possible note names. This one is similar to the one that we just went over. This key here is 1/2 step above D, and also 1/2 step below E. So we can call it D sharp or E flat. This one right here, for example, is 1/2 step above C and 1/2 step below D. Okay, so this can be called C sharp or D flat. Right. Finally, there's a trickier one here. Okay, it's pointing to this note. Okay, well, of course, it's an F. Okay, because we figured that out. However, there's one more possible name for this note. Okay, which is say if you are using sharp or flat to identify this note in terms of another letter, what would it be? Well, F, of course, is a 1/2 step above E, right? So F is a 1/2 step above E because they are next adjacent notes. Okay, so this note, it's called an F, but also it can be identified as E sharp. Right? So in this case, this white key, okay, even though it's a white key, you can also use a sharp, okay, to identify this, okay, because sharp and flat really just talks about the half step relationship, okay. And so also remember that on the keyboard there are two pairs of white keys that are half step apart. They are EF and also BC. Okay, so keep that in mind as you review how to name notes on the piano keyboard.